Hello, friends, and welcome. The true events on today's episode may be disturbing for some viewers due to frightening situations, graphic scenes, and death. Viewer discretion is advised. Feel free to skip this video if necessary, and always put your mental health first. In 1967, 35-year-old Prosenjit Poddar was a foreign exchange graduate student from Bengal, India that attended University of California, Berkeley. In the fall of 1968, he met 19-year-old Tatiana Tarasov, who went by the nickname Tanya, at folk dance lessons he taught at the International House where he also resided. They saw each other about once a week until New Year's Eve, when Tanya kissed him. Prosenjit interpreted the kiss as a symbol of the seriousness of their relationship. When he explained this to Tanya, she replied that he was wrong and that she was more interested in other men than in him. This rejection caused Prosenjit to undergo a severe emotional crisis where he became withdrawn, ignored his studies, stayed alone often, and wept frequently. His condition continued to deteriorate until he began to visit campus psychologist Dr. Lawrence Moore. In the summer of 1969, when Tanya was on vacation in Brazil, Prosenjit confided to Dr. Moore that when Tanya returned, he was going to kill her. Dr. Moore believed Prosenjit and notified the campus police, requesting that they have him committed. They briefly detained him, but released him since he appeared to be rational and promised to stay away from her. Prosenjit ended his therapy with Dr. Moore because of attempts to hospitalize him. At the order of Dr. Moore's superior, psychiatrist Dr. Harvey Paulson, no further steps were taken to commit Prosenjit or warn Tanya. In late October, Prosenjit went to Tanya's home to talk with her. She was not at home, and her mother told him to leave. He did, but returned later that night with a pellet gun and a butcher knife. He said he wanted to speak with her, and she began to scream. He then shot her several times with the pellet gun. She ran from the house, and Prosenjit ran after her. He repeatedly stabbed Tanya with the butcher knife, killing her. Tanya's parents filed a lawsuit against Dr. Moore, Dr. Paulson, campus police, and the University of California for failure to warn them, Tanya, or anyone who could have notified Tanya, and for negligently failing to confine Prosenjit. After their lawsuit was dismissed for failing to state a cause of action, they brought their appeal to the California State Supreme Court. The Supreme Court concluded that all defendants were immune from the lawsuit for failure to act properly to convince Prosenjit on the basis of a California statute. However, they did rule in a December 1974 decision that the psychologist had a duty to warn a potential victim. The decision was withdrawn after a tremendous reaction to it by the psychiatric community. It took the court an additional 18 months to reinstate the decision in different language. The 1976 decision is similar, though not identical, to the one issued in 1974. In a hard-fought 5-2 decision, the court held that when a therapist predicts that his patient is a danger to another person, he has a duty to warn that person of that danger. 4 of the 7 justices went even further, holding that, in addition, if a therapist should have made such a prediction on the basis of professional standards, he bears a duty to exercise reasonable care to protect the foreseeable victim of that danger. The majority of the court held our current crowded and computerized society compels the interdependence of its members. In this risk-infested society, we can hardly tolerate the further exposure to danger that would result from a concealed knowledge to the therapist that his patient was lethal. Prosenjit was convicted of second-degree murder, but the conviction was overturned on the grounds that the jury had been inadequately instructed, and he was released on the condition that he returned to India. He returned to India, kept a low profile, and had been living under a different name. As of August 2023, he was married sometime after his release, had one child, and was living a quiet life. As of 2012, a duty to warn is mandated and codified in legislative statutes of 23 states. While the duty is not codified in a statute but is present in the common law supported by precedent in 10 states. 11 states have a permissive duty, and 6 states are described as having no statutes or case law offering guidance. Margaret Mary Ray was the second of 4 children born to George and Loretta Ray in Illinois. She attended Grace Lake Community High in Grace Lake, Illinois, where she was a popular honor student. After graduating in 1970, Margaret briefly enrolled in a nursing program at Marquette University. She dropped out during her sophomore year to marry her first husband, Gary Janssen, with whom she had 4 children. When Margaret was in her early 20s, she began showing signs of schizophrenia. 2 of her brothers, Bill and David, also had schizophrenia, which began manifesting when they were both in their early 20s. In 1973, 22-year-old Bill committed suicide by driving his car into a tree. 21-year-old David died of intentional carbon monoxide poisoning in 1977. Loretta Ray later revealed that her husband George was treated for schizophrenia before their marriage and was an alcoholic. He died of a heart attack in the 1970s. By 1982, Margaret and Gary's marriage ended in divorce. Her mental health continued to decline, and her ex-husband was awarded custody of their 4 children. Sometime after her divorce, Margaret married for a second time and had a 5th child, Alex, in 1984. Margaret's friends and family attempted to get her professional help, but she refused and would frequently disappear for months at a time. Margaret lived a transient life and would often hitchhike across the United States. When she was not living at the homes of various friends and family members, she would live in shanties. Around 1989, she relinquished custody of Alex to her mother. Margaret first made the news in May 1988 when she was arrested at the Lincoln Tunnel for failing to pay the $3 toll. She was driving late-night talk show host David Letterman's Porsche, stolen from his driveway, with her 3-year-old son, Alex. She claimed she was David's wife and that her son was their child, David Jr. Over the next several years, she was arrested a total of 8 times for trespassing on David Letterman's property and other related counts. She claimed she left cookies and an empty Jack Daniels bottle in the foyer of David's Connecticut home. At one point, she was found sleeping near a tennis court on his property. During one of her break-ins, which led to a 9-month prison sentence, Margaret admitted that she kept herself busy in David's mansion by writing, watching TV, cleaning, washing the windows, and doing the floors. She added, "I like housework." Another time, Mary explained her break-in to the police as a surprise visit and once told a suspicious cabbie, "He's expecting me. I've got papers to drop off." At one point, Margaret convinced tradesmen working at David's home that she was his wife, and they gave her a lift into town. The New York Times reported that David only felt threatened once, when he was in his bed with his girlfriend one night to see Margaret standing in his hallway. According to David, she immediately ran away. He reportedly found her sleeping in a guest bedroom on one occasion. Margaret's exploits became a staple of supermarket tabloids, and David himself publicly treated it as a joke. In 1993, before moving his late-night show from NBC to CBS, David Letterman's top 10 things I have to do before I leave NBC included sending change of address forms to that woman who breaks into my house. Another quip occurred on David's first show on CBS, where he joked that being on the air an hour earlier every day, his stalker was breaking into his house that much earlier than normal. However, in an interview with Barbara Walters, David noted he never mentioned Margaret's name on the air and said that he had great compassion for her, often declining to press criminal charges against her. I wasn't comfortable with the humanity of that, he said. Margaret eventually served a total of 34 months in jail in psychiatric hospitals for stalking David. During her jail and hospital stays, she was prescribed antipsychotic drugs to treat her schizophrenia, which improved her condition. She would stop taking them after her release because she did not like the physical side effects of weight gain and lethargy, and felt that she did not need the medicine because she was not ill. After she was released from jail in the early 1990s, Margaret's attention shifted to astronaut Franklin Story Musgrave, to whom she wrote letters, made phone calls, and sent packages for over 4 years. In 1994, she posed as a reporter and interviewed him at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. In September 1997, she showed up at his home in Osceola County, Florida. She claimed she and Story were writing a book together, stating, "I love Dr. Musgrave. I would die for him. He is a man of integrity and intelligence." Margaret eventually served time in a Florida jail for trespassing on Story's property. After her time in jail, she was sent to a psychiatric hospital in Miami and prescribed Haldo, an antipsychotic drug. Her condition improved and she was released from the hospital in August 1998. Shortly after her release, Margaret stopped taking her medication. She settled in Hotchkiss, Colorado, living on Social Security disability benefits and performing odd jobs. On October 5, 1998, at the age of 46, she took her own life by kneeling on the tracks in front of an oncoming train. In a letter she wrote to her mother before her death, Margaret said, "I'm all traveled out. I chose a painless and instantaneous way to end my life in the valley I loved." At the scene of her death, she placed her purse on the ground with a quick note with the phone number of a friend who could contact her family. Margaret's body was cremated and her family scattered her ashes in Needle Rock Natural Area near Crawford, Colorado. At the end of 1998, American newspapers listed her among the notable high-profile deaths of that year, alongside Tammy Wynette, Linda McCartney, Dr. Benjamin Spock, and Lloyd Bridges. Story Musgrave publicly expressed sympathy upon her death, describing her as a creative genius and stating that he felt as if he had lost a relative. David Letterman described her suicide as a sad end to a confused life. "18-year-old Shauna Grice met 26-year-old Michael Lane in 2015 when they both worked at Brighton Fire Alarms. Michael and Shauna had a brief relationship before Shauna broke up with him. Michael became obsessed with Shauna when she started dating her high school boyfriend again, Ashley Cook. Michael refused to accept the breakup and said to a friend, "She'll pay for what she's done." Michael stalked Shauna and hid a tracker device on her car. On February 8, 2016, Shauna complained to police about being stalked by Michael after receiving unwanted flowers and damage to her car. On March 24, 2016, Michael snatched her phone and grabbed her hair. He was arrested on suspicion of assault, but later released, and Shauna was issued with a fixed penalty notice by the police for wasting their time by not disclosing she had been in a relationship with him. On July 9, 2016, Michael used a stolen key to let himself into her home and watch her while she was apparently sleeping. She was actually awake, had heard his footsteps, and hid under the duvet. She heard a man breathing in her room. Shortly afterwards, the man left, and when Shauna looked out her window, she saw Michael walking away. He was arrested for theft, given a police caution, and was told to stay away from Shauna. The following day, on July 10th, she received around 7 phone calls from a blocked number, including one with heavy breathing. She was told by police there were no further lines of inquiry and the case would be left on file. On July 12th, Shauna reported to police that she was being followed by Michael. Police treated the case as low risk, but that the investigating officer would be made aware. On August 4th, 2016, she saw Michael loitering outside her home. Shauna confided in her friend Joanne Pumphrey that she was afraid that police wouldn't believe her because of her previous fine for wasting police time. Although Joanne was a witness to this, Shauna did not report the incident to the police. On August 25, 2016, 27-year-old Michael waited until 19-year-old Shauna was home alone, then let himself in, slit her throat, and set fire to her bed with her in it. Her body was found by Ian Cook, her boyfriend's father, in her East Sussex home. Michael was arrested the same day at his workplace. He initially lied to police about his movements that day before admitting that he had gone to Shauna's home. He claimed that he had found the front door open, then found Shauna's body in her bedroom. He claimed he panicked, then left the scene without dialing 999, checking Shauna's vital signs, or telling his family what he had found. He claimed that he only kept quiet about what he had seen because he was afraid of being accused of her murder. The trial was held in 2017 and lasted 2 weeks. Michael admitted to stalking Shauna, but pleaded not guilty to murdering her. After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Michael guilty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. Shauna's parents, Sharon Grice and Richard Green, said their daughter would still be alive if Sussex police had acted on her complaints. The judge, Justice Green, also criticized police. During sentencing, he said, "There was seemingly no appreciation on the part of those investigating that a young woman in a sexual relationship with a man could at one and the same time be vulnerable and at risk of serious harm. The police jumped to conclusions and Grice was stereotyped." A domestic homicide review report concluded that Michael harassed 13 girls and young women between 2006 and 2016 and had been arrested over claims he groomed a 14-year-old girl. The 2010 grooming allegation was marked on his arrest record, but he was not charged. It was not noted when Shauna reported him for harassment, despite the allegation being on file. The allegation occurred when he was a volunteer scout leader. After his arrest, he resigned from the Scouts. He was told the allegation would be considered if he tried to rejoin the organization. When he rejoined in 2015, he was not recognized as a past member due to a temporary glitch in the IT system, and he volunteered for several months. The report said that Michael had used youth movements which appealed to young women and girls to allow him access to victims. It also mentioned an account of Michael being very controlling in another relationship, of him bombarding women with explicit messages, loitering outside their homes, pestering women to sleep with him for money, harassing 2 women he met in a pub, and sexually assaulting another woman. Sussex police apologized to Shauna's parents and referred themselves to the Independent Police Complaints Commissions, or the IPCC, which launched an inquiry. In late April 2017, Sussex police accepted 6 recommendations from the IPCC to improve the way the force dealt with stalking. The recommendations concern training, data systems, and making use of relevant information. IPCC Associate Commissioner Tom Milsom said that Sussex Police had taken a positive response to the recommendations, and he said that stalking and harassment are serious offenses, and in certain situations, such as those involving Grice, can have tragic consequences. Detective Superintendent Jason Tingley of Sussex Police said that additional training was already being provided, and we have improved our understanding of what stalking and harassment is and what our response should be. In April 2019, a government report concluded that stalking and harassment offenses were not being properly investigated by Sussex Police. The report said that a training program introduced after Shauna's murder to help staff understand and identify stalking was never fully completed. Most investigating officers had received no training, not enough victims were being referred to support services, and there is concern over online stalking. Police forces nationally were not using powers under stalking laws to search suspects' homes, which made investigations less thorough. Injunctions were not being used, so victims were not being properly protected. The National Police Chiefs Council was called on to make sure police forces around the UK make improvements and that a single definition of stalking be adopted by police forces and government departments. In April 2019, it was announced that police officers would face disciplinary action the following May. 2 officers, 1 retired, faced gross misconduct proceedings, while the other officer was accused of misconduct. Police Constable John Barry Mills resigned from the police before a disciplinary hearing on May 10, 2019. One allegation against Mills is that he failed to adequately investigate allegations of harassment and stalking. This relates to July 9, 2016, when Shauna complained Michael had stolen her backdoor key, crept into her bedroom, and watched her sleeping. Shauna made a further complaint on July 12 of Michael following her in his car, but Mills failed to contact Miss Grice or update her regarding the reported incident. She was not called back, and a few days later received a letter stating that the case was closed. Friends said she was angry and could not believe the police had dropped the case and had not reported further instances of stalking as a result. It was the last time she contacted police before Michael murdered her in August. When questioned, Mills said he was alarmed by some of Michael's behavior and admitted that his failure to properly question him was an oversight. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, or IOPC, which was formed in 2018 and took over some of the IPCC's functions, stated, "Resigning from the force does not preclude officers from facing misconduct hearings." A force disciplinary panel ruled that Mills's failings amounted to gross misconduct and that had he not resigned, he would have been dismissed from the police force. In July 2019, former police constable Trevor Godfrey was found by a disciplinary panel to have committed misconduct by not investigating Shauna's complaints of harassment, but that he had not committed gross misconduct. He had issued Shauna with a warning for wasting police time and decided to take no further action against Michael. Godfrey had since retired, but would not have been dismissed if he had still been working. Shauna's parents said the misconduct charge was a joke and the hearing was a sham. In August 2019, it was announced that Sussex police would no longer fine people reporting domestic abuse for wasting police time. A March 2021 documentary about the case was broadcast on Sky Crime called Murder in Slow Motion: The Shauna Grice Story. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. If you enjoyed the stories in this episode, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be alerted to all future content. If you have a story you would like me to read, feel free to email me your submission for a chance to hear your story on a future episode. Thank you again, friends, for your love and support. I'm Avarea, and until next time, take care.